Amici di Backdoor Podcast, siamo qui oggi in questa video chat improvvisata nei tempi, ma assolutamente non improvvisata nella sostanza, perché abbiamo un grandissimo ospite con noi oggi e ovviamente per chi non l'avesse capito sarà una video chat in inglese, poi ovviamente parleremo, tradurremo tutto, metteremo i sottotitoli, faremo uscire per chi ha poca dimestichezza con l'inglese, ma siamo convinti che potrete godervela appieno sin dall'inizio, quindi l'ospite lo conoscete, è David Blatt, quindi non mi resta che introdurlo e cominciare quella che si preannuncia essere ovviamente una chiacchierata molto molto interessante. Welcome David.
Ciao.
How are you?
Super. And how are you, man?
Ah,
Ciao,
very good.
amici in Italia.
Very good Italian. Still in your heart.
Still in my heart, always.
First question, what are the differences between coaching in the EuroLeague team and in the NBA team?
Well, I think, you have differences that are both technical, and you have differences that are more things outside of the court. Obviously, the rules of the NBA game are very different than the rules in the European or EuroLeague games, whether it be the length of the game, the dimensions of parts of the court as far as the three-point line is concerned, different specifics regarding offensive and defensive strategies and ability to use certain kind of tactics, the length of the season, which has a very particular dynamic in terms of preparation and maintenance for players. The players themselves, although the differences are becoming, I would say, to a certain extent, smaller and smaller. I still believe that in the NBA, the top 5 or 6 players are really at another level. But after that, EuroLeague players could easily find themselves into a rotation type situation, or some EuroLeague players could find themselves in a rotation situation in the NBA. And certainly, bench players from 10, 11, 12, 13, there's really no difference. Sometimes, and in many cases, you even find better players because of financial situations or desire of certain players to have bigger roles on a team, not necessarily in the NBA. But, one of the biggest things, and one of the things that I experienced was the game outside of the game, in the NBA, the whole world of world that we live in today, that is so media driven and impacts so much on the players themselves and on their approach and on their attitude and on their determination to become known both outside of the court as well as inside the court. And these are things that play very heavily in terms of the approach of players and to players on the part of coaches, as well as coaching itself. Unless you're one of the few coaches in the NBA that really sort of controls their own program, I think by and large the control of a European coach over his team and over the immediate elements of the team, whether it be roster or decisions regarding professional matters, is much greater than you find in the NBA.
Emanuele asks the first question, what's the difference in terms of relationship with the players? You coach LeBron James, the most important example, but a lot of very good players. What's the difference between the two situations?
Well, that's a very particular and interesting question. If you have certain players that their personality or character is such that you may be in a different kind of relationship than with other players or than you are with players in Europe. And then you have other players that, it's very similar and very, and have a great deal in common. Generally speaking, you hope and you try to coach players in a way that you can create the best environment for the team and help them to become the best version of themselves. With the bigger stars in the NBA, it's challenging because their role in the organization and in the vision of the team in many cases is a lot bigger than that of a European situation. There's so many elements of on the business side that gives the certain players, the kind of responsibility and importance in a team that's well beyond what it may be in a European situation, or well beyond what the coaches may be in a European situation. So it's very different in some cases, in other cases not. And a lot of it, of course, depends on the personality of the player or the players. That's part of it too.
When you said yes to this chat, I rewatched some of your key matches. I watched a part of the final when you played in Treviso against Bologna. Last possession were crazy, a lot of fouls. What do you remember about that feeling at the buzzer when the crowd explodes, the players explodes? What are the feelings you have in your heart?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is ecstasy, ekstaza. It was, that was a special feeling, a special championship. And beyond that, just a special place to be, Treviso, which is a small town compared to some of the major cities in Italy. And the Benetton tradition, of which fortunately I was able to become a part of, with so many great moments and so many great players and so many great coaches that, recognizing at that moment that we as a team, the players and the coaches became a part of that legacy, became a part of that great tradition. That was just an amazing feeling. Not to mention that, the whole championship was so great. Having played against a great Milano team, that had, of course, so many big stars, and Gallinari, who went on to be such a great player, has gone on to be such a great player in the NBA. And then we played, of course, against Rome, that had so many great players, particularly Dian Bodiroga, who we're all familiar with his great European career. And then finally against Bologna, one of the traditionally great teams in Italy that had also a few NBA players of their own, including Bellinelli and a few others that, it was, when you look back, it was a very special time. And maybe 2 years of the best years in all of my career. I loved my time in Italy, and I loved my time in Treviso. And, I feel fortunate to have had those experiences and to have that as being a good part of my basketball life.
Another important moment for your career, I suppose, when you played the Euro Cup final with Darusafaka against an undefeated Lokomotiv Cuban. I thought it was the best scenario for you to break their heart. What do you remember about the last minute of the game one? Kulagin take the rebound, put the Cuban up by 5. There's no chance, I think. And you steal the ball. You came down to steal the ball, play, and Wilbekin put up the 3, incredible 3. You go to overtime and you win. What do you remember about the last minute, the last possession? I suppose it was incredible as a fan.
Well, you know what I remember generally was that that team particularly was mentally very strong and had the quality of never giving up. You know, we had many games that year and many games in the playoffs of that competition where, you know, we were down and seemingly out, and then we always came back and won. You know, I'm thinking of the first series that we played against Budućnost at home. We were down maybe 15 points in an unexpected fashion. In the first half, we came back, we won that first game, and in the second game, we went to Budućnost, and we were missing a couple of players because of injuries, and we still won the game there. Then we played Bayern Munich, who was probably the favorite, together with the Lokomotiv, to win the competition. At home, in the first half, we were down 21 points, 21. And we came back and we won that game on a last-second shot. We were down in the second game away, and again, we came back and won. Then, of course, we go to Lokomotiv, and we're down most of the game. And as you said, down 5, and even down 2 with a few seconds, 3 seconds left on the clock, and they have the ball out on the sideline. And I'll never forget specifically Howardson Ross stealing the pass from the inbounds player out of the air in just an incredible fashion, and having the proper state of mind as he was dribbling down the court not to shoot the shot, because he wasn't the best three-point shooter on the floor, but stopping and shoveling the ball back to Scotty Wiebelken, who was the best three-point shooter on the floor, and allowing him to make that shot. And at that point, I knew there was no way we were losing. You know, it wasn't going to happen. And of course, winning that game, first game away on the road, allowed us to come back even without home court advantage and win the second game and win the championship. So that was pretty special.
Here in Milan, we have a particular memory of you. Your Maccabi Tel Aviv win the Final Four in a very incredible fashion for some reason. You said in an old interview that the crucial timeout for you, or the crucial time with your players, was between the third and the fourth quarter in the CSKA semifinal, because you felt CSKA was in trouble. You were in the game despite everything, and was that the moment when you realized you could win that game?
Well, I don't know if they were in trouble. What I remember saying was, we need to put them in trouble. You know, we have to bring them to a point where their confidence is not so high, because they were really a great team, and of course they had a great entreneur, great coach, Ettore Messina, and they were the favorite team, and also they were a great team, and they were very, very confident going into the game against us, because on paper they were probably the better team. And our whole thing was, at the end of the third quarter, when we were down 15 points, was just to cut it to 10 points and shake their confidence a little bit. And that's what we talked about, was to bring them to the point where they were not playing freely, where they were not confident in the things that they were doing. And we did do that, and we picked up our level. And of course, on another unbelievable play at the very end of the game, you know, we got a steal from a turnover that really was not so expected. Went down and made the last shot of ours with Tyrese Rice, and then when Weems missed the last second shot, we stole the game, which was very special.
That shot was very well created. It seems was open for that.
Yeah, he was open. He had an open look, but.
And I've rewatched the final against Real Madrid. I was there in Milan at the final, and I completely forgot the roster Real Madrid has: Mirotic, Liul, Rudy in his prime, Sergio Rodriguez, Felipe Reyes, Yanis Broussis. You were underdog, I suppose. They beat Barcelona extremely well in the semifinal. How could you win that game after being down by double digit in the first half? You play a very, very good basketball, very resilient basketball, and you could take the game with outstanding defense in the overtime. That was the mesh of your season, I suppose.
Well, you know, again, that was a great team. And they beat Barcelona by almost 40 points in the other semifinal. The thing that I remember specifically about that game going in, and why we kind of felt that we had a good chance, was, you know, the day after the semifinal, there's one practice each team had. And we came, and we didn't overdo it, but, you know, we had a practice. And we had seen Real Madrid come in for their practice, and they were of the philosophy that we just need to go very, very, very light. You know, it's not a criticism. It's just, you know, that's the way they decided to approach it. You know, there's very little time between games, and probably they thought the best thing to do was not to do a lot. And, you know, it kind of gave us the feeling that maybe they're not taking us so seriously. You know, I have no way to know if that was really their mindset, but we kind of built a sort of motivation from that, and that helped us. And despite that, we came to the first half, and they, as the great team that they were ahead by 13, 14, 15 points in the first half. Again, much like the end of the third quarter against Jessica, at the end of the second quarter against Real, we managed to come all the way back, and David Blue made a great three-point shot at the end of the quarter, and we finished the half only down 2 points. At this point, we knew that we had a really, really good chance because we found our rhythm, we were confident. We felt that maybe they were a little bit unsure and a little leery because they saw that we were, you know, a serious team. And of course, we had a chance to win at the end of regulation. We missed a 3-point shot in the last second, but in the overtime, we were just, you know, we were terrific. We scored in 5 minutes. We scored 25 points in the overtime. You don't see that every day. So, you know, that showed that we were so confident, and we were ready to be champions, and deservedly so at the end of the day.
That shot for Tyrese was open. He made one so similar 1 minute after the overtime. You could close it in the regulation.
That's all right. He was so great in the Final Four. We'll allow him to miss that shot.
Okay.
He was pretty special there.
Yeah, absolutely. A question from Luigi. What's the main skill for managing teams in many different countries like you did?
I think that the primary thing is in not trying to find differences and in not trying to force your way on the country, but let the country that you're in teach you how to behave, how to manage, and how to fit in, on a human level, whether it be, culturally, whether it be linguistically, philosophically. You have to know where you are, have a sense of where you are, as the great Bill Bradley who played in Italy, by the way, before he went to the NBA and became a championship member of the New York Knicks. You have to know where you're living. You have to open up to the people that you're living with, and then you can let the basketball take over.
I take Sergio question. David, how you evolved as a coach being with LeBron James and the Cavs?
Well, that, like I said, that's a different environment, and things for me there happened very quickly. I was signed to one team and to one set of circumstances, and when the Cavs made the moves that they made, that whole situation changed very quickly, and we went from a team that was trying to build and to become a playoff team in the course of a season or two, to being a championship contender. And that was a big change, a big adjustment. And I certainly did my best to try to help the team become a winning team. I don't know, and even to this day, I can say I probably never was able to coach it as I did all of my European teams. And this, in my mind and in my feeling, was perhaps my shortcoming. Although, from a results standpoint, we went to the NBA Finals and played in NBA Finals without two of the three of our best players, and still were very competitive. And the second year, at the little more than the midway point, we were in first place in the Eastern Conference. So, I say that I managed to coach in a winning way. I just didn't manage to coach in a way to keep my job. And it's, you have to face up to it. So that's okay. That situation, which obviously I'm very, very happy that it was part of my career, it does not define my career.
And I want you to explain, without two of your best three players, you were up 2-1 with an incredible game 3 at home with Matthew della Vedova. You go up by 20, if I remember correct. The Warriors came back, but you fought hard and win that game against a team that in the last year are a dynasty, an incredible team, a 73 win. What was the secret to build that 2-1 lead? No one think about it before.
Well, when we well, of course, coming into the series, Kevin was injured and did not play at all, and Kyrie played only a part of the first game. We had to adjust and make some serious changes in how we were playing in order to try to figure out how to limit them, because they were so powerful offensively and in a running game. And we changed drastically how we needed to play in order to compete. Now, the interesting thing is that we went up 2-1 with Game 4 in Cleveland, and unfortunately, after Game 3, Matthew Della, who was so terrific, in the playoffs up to that point, and in the games that Kyrie was injured, he literally collapsed. He finished the game 3 on the floor in the locker room. He couldn't get up to his feet, and he had to go in the hospital, and he spent the next 24 hours in the hospital with infusions in order to be able to recover and try to play game 4. Now our chance to win that series was to win another game at home. In this case, game 4. And we, physically, we just, particularly with Matthew not being really able to play, we just didn't have enough. We didn't have enough horses to pull the cart. LeBron, of course, was terrific, and a few other guys stepped up a little bit, but we just didn't have enough. We didn't have enough left. Even though in Game 5 we gave a very good performance, we were only down a few points late in the fourth quarter, but by Game 6 we had nothing left.
Do you think you have lost a chance in the next year to bring the championship to Cleveland? Do you think you could, with the total roster available, beat the Warriors, bring the championship with you as a coach?
Well, Cleveland ended up winning the championship.
Yep.
So, I don't really know how to answer that. It's interesting, and both teams were great teams, and certainly the Warriors that year won 73 games in a year that they did not win the championship. Cleveland did. But if you remember, Golden State was up 3-1 and came home for Game 5, and Draymond Green had been thrown out of the game, and he didn't play in Game 5. And Cleveland had a big win. Golden State playing, of course, without Draymond and also without Bogut, who was injured. So sometimes in NBA series, and then Cleveland, of course, won 2 more games and won the championship. Sometimes in NBA series, because it's the end of the season and you're in a 7-game series, injuries can determine everything. Look what happened last year with Golden State and Toronto. Suddenly Toronto found themselves playing against Golden State without Kevin Durant and without Klay Thompson. This is like us playing that first year of mine without Kevin and without Kyrie. Things can happen in a series after a long season. The intensity of a 7-game series is so great that 1 or 2 injuries can change the face of everything. So, there's no point to say what if and what could have been. The reality is that Cleveland had a fabulous victory in the next year, and I wasn't there, but I was part of it. I worked in that team, and I believe that I did something to help that team during that time, and I can only be thankful for that.
Ricardo asks you, who was the hardest coach to beat in your career?
I never beat any coaches. My teams beat some teams with great coaches, Ricardo. But, I can tell you that I have had the honor and the pleasure to coach against men like Ettore Messina, like Zeljko Obradović, like Greg Popovich, like Eric Spoelstra, like Doc Rivers, Sergio in Argentina in the national team, Sergio Scariolo, many times coaching against him, both in national teams and in pro situations. You know, these are coaches that are just so great. You know, and their teams are so great, in no small part because of the coaches. You know, it's hard to say who the hardest is. You know, generally, I never looked at it as if it was me against them, but more my team against their team. You know, because if we played one-on-one, my team always would have won. I was the best player. You know? No, only kidding.
And about your last chapter as a coach, do you have any type of regret in what is finished with the Olympiacos?
Yeah, I regret that I had to retire at the end of very beginning of my second year because of my illness. You know, I knew at some point in time my career as a coach was going to finish, and I wanted it to, because there are many other things that I want to do in my life. But I did not expect that I would have to stop coaching because physically I couldn't do it anymore. You know, and this for me was a great source of both sadness and inspiration. You know, because in life sometimes the window closes, but the door opens. You know, and you find an open path to something new and different and worthwhile and exciting. You know, and that's where I'm at now. But, you know, if I leave anything from that particular time specific to the question, it was this, you know, that I had to stop coaching.
And what about your experience at the Knicks as a consultant? What could you remember? Could you talk with us about that experience and what the situation of the Knicks?
Well, you know, I came in only in December, and, you know, my contract was a 4-month contract till the end of the season as a consultant. You know, and that's a very different kind of role than I have ever had in my life. And I tried my best to do what I could to do the things that the management asked me to do, and to offer experience and advice to coaches and players alike, from my experience. You know, it was very interesting to be in a position where I didn't have the great responsibility that I had had for almost 30 years as a head coach. You know, something very different. But I did experience professional sports from another angle, another side of the court, so to speak. And it was interesting. And it was fun, challenging.
I added a little bit the question from Marco. Best coach ever interviews. Tell us about
Grazie.
an anecdote and
But there were a lot of great coaches in Tunisia.
yeah, absolutely.
Very great coaches.
One anecdote behind the scenes of your experience with the Benetton team, something you never talk about.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story. You know, many of the games in the Italian league at that time were played on Sunday, and a few games, usually only one, was played at 12 o'clock. You know, and that was a very special kind of game because it was early. And, you know, if you were the home team, there was a particular dynamic. You know, we would all get together and eat breakfast as a team, and then maybe we would see a little more film and have a short meeting, and then of course everyone would be free and then go to the gym, and we would play the game at 12 o'clock. For some reason, when we played in Treviso, the 12 o'clock game, there were many of those games, and as I remember, it seems like we won every game at home at 12 o'clock. Of course, we won a lot of games anyway in Treviso when I was there, but The 12 o'clock games, we were particularly good. And what I remember the most, and it makes me smile to this day, is after the games, going to Piazza della Signore at about 3 o'clock and sitting out in the sun in the beautiful surroundings of Treviso in the old city, and drinking a couple of spritzes, Aperol spritz I liked, as opposed to Campari, and waiting for the 6 o'clock game when I could sit and watch the other coaches suffer, trying to win their game. You know, and this is something that I'll never forget.
Some quick question to end this chat. What are the teams that shows the best basketball in NBA and in Europe, in your opinion, this season or this part of the season?
You know, I think, for example, Milwaukee played a very specific kind of basketball, taking full advantage of their personnel. You know, they played a different kind of basketball without a post player, which I don't necessarily agree with, but for their team, it worked. They had 5 perimeter players, including Lopez at 7 foot or 7'1", shooting 3-point shots and spacing the floor and allowing Antetokounmpo to use his great open court and even half-court ability to break down a defense, drive all the way to the basket, or kick it to the 3-point line for open looks for other players. And I just thought that they took probably the best advantage of their personnel that was possible, playing their way and in the right way to be with the best record in the NBA. You know, you can't overlook or not give respect to the Lakers, who probably had more talent than anyone, but they understood how to use their talent, and they played a very good version of basketball to take take advantage of their many strengths. And they had many strengths. You know, when you have LeBron and Anthony Davis and so many other great players, you know, you're going to do pretty well, I believe. I really enjoyed Miami. I thought that they perhaps did more with less known players or even less developed players than anyone in the league, you know, and I think going forward, Miami is really a team to watch because of the way they play, because of their unity and their understanding of the things that they have to do at both ends of the court to be a top-level team. They're young, they're hungry, they see ahead of them, you know, even better days. And if they add a piece or two, watch out. You know, that's going to be a top level team again. You know, and those are a few of the teams that I really enjoyed watching.
I take a Manu question. Could you please tell us who is the most?
Manu Ginobili?
Huh?
No, sorry, Manu.
No. He wants to be, but I've seen him in the corner.
Do people realize that Manu's, you know, first great steps were, of course, in Italy?
Yeah.
Not in any other place.
Yeah, Reggio Calabria first and Virtus Bologna.
Right. What a great player and a great story, and a great guy, by the way.
Yeah. The most coachable and the most uncoachable player you had in your career?
Most coachable and the most uncoachable. You know, I was pretty lucky. You know, I had the good fortune to work with a lot of good players with high character. You know, and I think in building a team, it all starts with that. It starts with character. You know, I think of my teams in Benetton, what great people I had there, both on the roster as players and in the management, of our club, that it just starts with that, you can't overlook that piece. So, I work with a lot of great ones, I mean, I really, really did, from the standpoint of being willing to be coached, and that's an important thing for a coach. If you know what you're talking about and you have a feeling of how the team needs to play, and you can teach and you can motivate, and you can be a good example for them, then they'll follow you. So there's too many to mention. There really is. But I would coach those Benetton teams any day because they're just terrific guys. The most difficult players to coach, I tell you, there were one or two times in my long career where, unfortunately, I was with teams that did not pay the players.
Okay.
And when you're in a situation like that, most of the guys are hard to coach, really hard to coach. And those were the situations where I ran into a problem coaching guys. And, and honestly, it's hard to blame them. Some guys can deal with those situations. Some guys have patience, and some guys have maybe the long-term view, but other guys can't. And it's tough to coach them, but I really don't blame them.
Manu said he has the same talent on right-handed as Ginobili has in the left. I don't agree.
Let me tell you one of my great philosophies, Manu, about teams and team buildings. If you want to be a winning team, you have to have a European, number one. Number two, you have to have a left-hander. You got to have at least one lefty on your team, okay? And number three, you got to find a guy that can shoot. If you got those three things, you got a good chance to win.
Okay, I hope Manu listen this, but he isn't in none of this category.
That's all right.
If
that doesn't mean you can't do well with a Manu right-hander too. I'm just telling you a philosophy.
If you have to choose 5 players from EuroLeague, the best one for all, what did you choose? What do you choose?
That I coached?
No, about this season.
This year, who was the top 5 in EuroLeague? I remember I was sort of focusing on the NBA, although I followed the EuroLeague like I always do, but this year's best 5 in EuroLeague. I really needed to prepare myself for that question. There's probably 10 guys that were so great and all at the similar levels, but I was really a big fan of what Campazzo was doing, not only this year but the last couple of years, because I feel like he's a winning player, and he really helped Madrid to do great things. Of course, they have several terrific players there. Yula has been a little bit down because of injury problems. Excuse me, but he's such a great player, and you can't forget him. Maybe not this year as much as some years past, but Mirotic was terrific in Europe this year. Mike James gave a terrific year, which he had for most parts of last year, except perhaps going down the stretch. But Mike was terrific this year in Europe. There's so many guys that I'm forgetting.
Larkin was simple, probably.
Yeah. no question, Shane, far and away was the outstanding player in Europe this year. His performance was just incredible. The things that he did for Efes, and all these guys that we're talking about are guys that could, easily, as I mentioned to you, could easily be, in my mind, rotation players in the NBA if they wanted to. Perhaps they prefer to be in Europe for different reasons, but any of those guys could play in the NBA.
Last question. We talked last week with Sergio Scariolo and think about if there any European coach could take a head coach job in the NBA. Do you think will be possible in a short period of time? And if yes, who will be the best choice for an NBA franchise?
Do I think they can? Absolutely. Who that will be, I'm not in position to answer that, but do I feel that they could? I certainly do. Now, will it be a big adjustment for them, and will teams perhaps hesitate or want them to go the route of working through the ranks, so to speak, being an assistant and then getting a head job? That could very well be, but do I think that there are European head coaches that could do a good job in the NBA? I certainly do. I truly do.
Thank you so much, David, for your time and for sharing your thoughts about everything in your career. I hope you enjoyed this time and good luck for your future. Thank you.
Well, very nice to talk to everyone, and of course, hello and be well and be healthy, my good people and good friends in Italy. And I on a daily basis think of you.
Thank you. Bye bye, David. Siamo arrivati in fondo a questa video chat con David Blatt, che ovviamente ringraziamo ancora. Ringraziamo tutti voi che siete stati con noi, ci avete posto le domande, siete stati anche molto bravi a farle in inglese, mi avete semplificato decisamente la vita. Io vi ringrazio, come dicevo ovviamente arriverà la versione sottotitolata nei prossimi giorni per chi non fosse avvezzo alla lingua inglese. Grazie davvero a tutti e continuate a seguirci su www.backdoorpodcast.com.